Welcome, everybody, and welcome especially to business owners, small business owners like myself. And I suppose when I see this topic, time management, it makes me instantly think of training that I did over the years, where there's so many hours in a day and so many hours in a week, and you only have to do X, Y, and Z, and then magically, you're going to sort out your time management. And my motto when I'm working with people is it's always easy to say these things and it's always easy to look at theories, but the live in reality for people is often very different. And I know even in my own business, having time or having enough time to do the things I want to get done is probably one of my biggest challenges. So I suppose I want to invite you to look at time management from a new perspective, from the point of what part of this belongs to you and what part of it is open to change. So when we look at things like time management, I mean, the first thing that sounds very obvious is that everybody has the same amount of hours awarded to them in the day. Some people seem to squeeze so much more out of the day and other people, and then other people seem to it takes them like 10 hours to do something that it might take you 1 hour to do. And we all have times in our life when we're at our best. So some people, if it's the very last hour of the deadline, they'll manage to get 90% of the task done in that last hour. Albeit that's the most stressful hour of their life, maybe, but in that hour, that's when they seem to get, they're at their most productive. Other people are, when they get the task awarded to them, they're like, right, I want to get stuck into that task. I want it off my desk or I want it off my list because at least I'll have time to go back over it if there's any mistakes or whatever it might be. And the first thing about managing your time is actually coming back to you, managing you. So the same way if I asked you to manage a new employee, you can't really manage somebody until you know how they actually work. You must look at yourself and get to understand yourself and what's the best way for you to work. So, are you a morning person? Are you a night owl? Which one are you more in the middle of the day? Because trying to, box yourself into a hole that doesn't work for you is I suppose, a waste of time and energy. So if so, there's no point in me running a workshops now and saying, okay, everybody that's listening to this workshop, I want you all to start work an hour earlier every day. Because if you're a night owl, that's really no good to you. What's good for you is for you to understand when you are at your best, when is your optimum time of the day. Me personally, I am 100% a morning person. If I had an important job to get over the line and I knew the following day I didn't have enough hours in the day, I would get up a couple of hours earlier to get it over the line. Saying that, my husband is the complete opposite. He's a night owl. He would be much more likely to stay up 11, 12, 1 to get the job done, and then he'd go to bed and sleep soundly. So two different people working in two different, completely different ways, both working in a way that's best for them. Because when you work in a way that's best for you, it stays with you. So instead of it being one of these kind of tricks that you try out for a couple of weeks and great, it works, but then you fall back to your natural habits. So it's about understanding what works for you. The other thing that is really important for you to understand is, if you're much more likely to be a lastminute.com kind of person or a get it over the line first kind of a person. So if you tend to be like a procrastinator, if you are procrastinator, there's a little technique that I use because I personally am a procrastinator. If I'm given a deadline, I see the deadline as my goal. So it's like I don't even think about it till the day before it's due or even the day that it's due. And I don't necessarily believe that I work better under pressure. A lot of procrastinators will say that. They'll say to you, well, it works for me because that's when I do my best work. I don't. I just think, well, I don't need to think about that right now. I'll push it down the line and I'll think about it when I need to. And obviously what that costs me is if I run into any difficulties on projects, I don't have the time available that I would have had if I'd have started it a while before. And of course, what it really costs me is time, because from the time you open that project or that task is needed, it hangs over you. It's like a monkey on your back, on your shoulder, just sitting there tapping away at you, going, you're going to, is today going to be the day that you finish that job or you get that project over the line or whatever it might be. So although it might take me 2 hours to do the night before it's due, realistically, it takes me the number of days that it's been sitting on my shoulder and nagging me. So a little technique that I have, it mightn't necessarily work for everybody, but we're all completely different. So different things work for different people. If it helps one person, I'll be happy. I call it the power of now, and it stands for no longer hanging over me, weighing me down. So when I think about a project and I start to feel the procrastination voice coming in saying, oh, sure, you don't need to think about that for another week, Jenny, I think about the joy of no longer hanging over me, weighing me down. And I say to myself, well, what if I was even to just start that job? What if I started that job today? Apologies for the phone, guys. What if I was to start that job today, and even if I just gave it an hour of my time, I could even break the back of it, or I could have a look at it, and if there's any surprises that I'm not going to be aware of, then I'll know what to expect, in another couple of weeks. So usually what I do is I tend to procrastinate more about the jobs that I actually don't want to do. So for example, my biggest bane would be tenders. So if there's a tender sitting on my desk that I need to fill out, I'm like, oh, that's due on Friday. I look at it on Thursday. So now the new non-procrastinating time management, Jenny, that sometimes is around, and we'll try this approach. So the first thing I do is I pick the best time of day for me. So 100% for me, that's first thing in the morning. And when I mean first thing, I mean from the time I open my computer at my desk, whatever time I start work at. I don't open an email. I don't take a phone call. It's the very first thing I do. I allocate myself a time. So the time might be that I've allocated an hour, or might be that it's 2. It's very rarely more than 2, because it 2 is kind of my cutoff point for my mind feeling like it's too big of a mountain. Okay. So I tell my mind, look, we only have to put our head down now, get stuck in for an hour or get stuck in for 2, and put as much work into this as you possibly can. And then what I also do is I allocate something nice at the end of the hour or the 2 hours. So for example, if I was planning on booking flights, I'll say, right, I'll do this hour and then I'll go online and book the flights. Or I'll do this 2 hours work and then I'll go out and I'll have my breakfast. Or I'll go for a walk, or I'll make that phone call to my friend that I've been dying to catch up with, or whatever it might be. It might only be a 5-minute little kind of treat that I need to kind of look forward to. So what I've done is I've allocated a time frame. I have looked at a time that is most suitable to me, that I'm at my best, my optimum time for working, and I've given my mind a reward to look forward to at the end. Now, most of the time that I sit down to a project like that, I will actually finish the project. But I don't say to my mind, we're sitting down to finish this project, because procrastinators tend to look at these mountains and go, oh, that's going to be, or that's too big a job, or that's too difficult a job. So we avoid it. And then we kind of pinhole it into a space of maybe like 2 hours, because that's all we have left to do. And so when you tell your mind that you're just giving yourself an hour at this project, all of a sudden, before you know, you finish, like an hour has flown by, and you think, I might just keep going for another 20 minutes because I think I might actually have this finished. Or I might give it another hour and the back will be broken. And then when I need to finish off that last little bit, it won't be as difficult to go back to, because I know what it is that I'm expecting. And also the big plus with that is, if you tell your mind, which is you're talking to yourself, that your reward is, I don't know, maybe donuts are your thing. You want to go down to Dunkin' Donuts or whatever it might be, or get yourself your favorite coffee. Make sure you keep your word to yourself, because your mind is like a small child. If you said to a small child, we can have a lollipop after your dinner, and they finished all their dinner and then they didn't get a lollipop, forgetting about the tantrum that you might say, the next time you say to the child, you can have a lollipop if you finish all your dinner, do you think they're going to believe you? No. Well, think of your mind like that. Your mind knows whether you're going to keep your word to yourself or not. And when you start keeping your word to yourself, your performance will rise to that challenge. So allow the time frame that's most suitable for you, and allow a realistic time frame. So don't say to yourself, I'm going to give this 20 minutes, because what's 20 minutes going to do? You're probably going to open the cover page, read it, and put it away. So minimum of an hour, ideally two, if you can manage two. If it's over that, then sometimes the mind will find an excuse to push that job down the line, like, oh, I haven't got 3 hours, I haven't got 4 hours, I'll be too tired, I'll be too hungry, whatever it might be that the mind will tell you. So set a realistic time frame. I tend to work in 2 hour slots, 2 hours on, an hour break or an hour of something different, and 2 hours back on. That's what I'm at my most productive doing. But that's me. So you know what you're most productive doing. So that's when it comes to kind of procrastinating. That's a really useful way for managing your time. The other thing to say about managing time, most of us are too busy to pause and really look at what it is that we're actually doing. So this is like a conundrum in the sense that, in one way, you're so busy you haven't got time to pause. And then the other way, you need to pause so that you can be less busy. One of the most beneficial things, I would probably even go as far as to say the most beneficial thing that you can do for your business every single day, is press the pause button. So most of us, especially when you're self-employed and you don't really have like the duty of care as an employer hanging over you, going, oh, you must take your 5 minute break now, and you must take your 30 minute break now, and you must take your lunch break now. And, we tend to just work and work and work and work. And that's actually not productive. When you work and you pause and you clear the mind, you will come back to work 100 times more productive. And there's huge scientific research to back up what I'm saying. I'm not going to start quoting it now, but like if you want to look at any website in particular, it would be the Positive Intelligence website, where work around mindfulness has been scientifically studied to increase productivity. So I'm not even talking about, say, mindfulness per se. I'm just talking about the pause button. I'm talking about that when you take your coffee break or your lunch break, or maybe even your dinner, that at some point during the way, you step away from the work. So step away from the laptop or whatever it might be that you need to do. Step away from the work. And I don't just mean physically, although I definitely do mean physically, at least. So at least physically, at least environmentally. So in other words, you're stepping away from the physical work. If you're at a machine, if you're at a computer, step away from it. If you're in a building, step out of the building. If you have to go and sit in your car, go and sit in your car. If your office is at home, leave the room that it's in. If you have to leave your house, do so. Leave the environment that you're in. You need an end and a restart. And then whatever it might be that you can spare. So that's why I'm not going to prescribe to you, oh, must be 30 minutes, it must be 5 minutes. Do what you can do. And trust me, as you feel the benefits, you'll increase the time. I would say if you can aim for 2 to 3 minutes every single day of just a pause button. And there's so many different types of pauses that you can take. I'll just list a few in a few moments, because I don't really want to get into the whole telling you what you should be doing, but just the pause in itself is really, really powerful. But you need to leave the environment, and you need to leave the work. And of course, then mentally, you need to also leave the work where it belongs. So when you go to have your cup of coffee or your sandwich or even your walk, it can't be that the job is running around in your head going, now when I go back now, I'm going to check on that order, another email, but definitely can't take a phone call. It needs to be a switch off. It needs to be an absolute pause. And by doing that for your mind, what happens is, it's like when you get the engine of your car serviced. The engine runs so much better. It runs more efficient. It needs less fuel. All of that happens. It's exactly what happens in our mind. So think of it like that. So when we pause, then of course, naturally, if we're not used to pausing, the mind is always going to be racing. So it's a mind. You think of the horse, the mind being like a racehorse or a wild horse. It's just running, wild, wild, wild. And we need to sort of lasso that horse and get it to anchor itself to calm down. And just to give you a very quick overview of different ways of anchoring the mind. It can be concentrating on your senses. So you have 5 senses. You've got taste, touch, smell, sight, and sound. I was nearly forgetting them there. And so if you just focus on any one of them, or even take turns with some of them, I usually do it with a cup of tea or coffee. As I'm supping my cup of tea or coffee, I try and tune into the 5 senses. Breath is really powerful, just noticing your breath in and out. You can also count your breath. You can do different breathing techniques. Really powerful breathing technique for relaxing the mind is called 4-6-8. So breathe in for 4, hold it for the count of 6, and then as you release it slowly through the mouth, count to 8, if possible. That's really, really powerful. So 10 of them is an amazing pause button. So the pause button part, I'm sure there's millions of resources online. And if you want any more information, do feel free to contact me. I'll definitely send you videos. I'll send you information if that's what you'd like. In the meantime, I want to go back to the benefit of the pause button. So the benefit of the pause button, tidies up the mind and it allows the mind to work more efficiently. So instead of working through and driving yourself through and through and through and through, what happens is as the mind becomes clearer, we work in a more creative energy. Now, creative doesn't have to be that you're making things. Creative is what we call solution-focused energy. So sometimes you can be right in the middle of a problem, like I have no time, I have no time, I have no time, I have no time, but you cannot see the solution. When you pause, when you take a step outside and pause, the solution comes. So you could be driving home from work that night, you could be waking up the next morning, and all of a sudden, a little bit of insight comes in, a little bit of innovation. You're tapping into a different part of your brain when you start to pause. And if you can pause for 2 or 3 minutes once a day and you feel the benefits of that, instead of trying to pause for longer, keep the pause for 2 to 3 minutes, but maybe do it in the morning and at nighttime as well. Try and increase the number of pauses that you get through the day. Really, really powerful for building your mental fitness. And, people would say, well, mental fitness, what has that got to do with time management? Time management is all about mental fitness, because the fitter your mind is, the clearer you're thinking, the laser focus that you have, that you can work and get more work done in those hours, as opposed to having 10 hours to do something. That's why when our back is against the wall and we're under pressure, we can get projects over the line in the space of a couple of hours versus it taking us all week to kind of drag ourselves through it. It's that lack of focus that we're missing. And when we do the pause button, that's what it gives our mind. It gives us that laser sharp focus and motivation that helps with time management. The last thing I'm going to finish with on time management is just to say your perception, your beliefs that you tell yourself. I have no time, there's not enough time in the day, I'm so tired, I'm so busy. Watch the language that you say to yourself, because whatever you are telling yourself, whatever beliefs that you hold, whatever talk that you're speaking, your mind listening, and it's recreating your reality based on what it is that you're saying to yourself. So if you keep telling yourself you're so busy, one of the things that we do as self-employed people is we shine up our busy badge. Oh my God, I work 12 hours a day. I haven't had a day off since last Christmas, and then we all pat each other on the back and say, oh my God, you're amazing. Well, you know what they say, the first 2 years in business, you never sleep. And, that's not really realistic. Your body eventually will let you know that is not a realistic goal. And people say to me all the time, but there's no other way. Of course, there's another way, because I'm telling you now, if aliens came down and kidnapped you in the morning, somebody else would be able to run your business, whether you like it or not. So that business will still run, whether aliens kidnap you, whether you end up flattened back in hospital, whether, whatever it might be, whether, whatever happens, that other people can do what you can do. And the big thing we tell ourselves is there's no other way. There is no way. There's no other way. And once you tell yourself that, you block out the way. When we say there's no way, we block out the way. So start with the pause button, open up your mind, start generating some of that creative energy, and that creative energy is solution focused energy. And if you want things to be different in your business, Say to yourself, there is a way. There absolutely is a way. I just haven't found it yet. Okay. You might know what the way is, but be open to the way, because of course there's a way. Do you honestly think that you have considered every single option that exists in this world for your business to improve time management, to improve your productivity? Absolutely not. There is always a way. But when we're too in depth in the problem and too worn out to even see the way out of the problem, then it's very difficult for us to solve it. And I'll finish on this quote. Albert Einstein said, the same consciousness that caused the problem cannot be the same consciousness. Just the same consciousness that caused the problem cannot be the same consciousness to solve it. So we need a different consciousness, and we get that from the pause button. So watch what it is you're saying to yourself. What's your self-belief around, I'm so busy, I haven't had a day off since I put in 22 hours today alone. Watch all the self-talk that you keep telling yourself, because your mind will keep showing you more of it. That's how it works. And also watch the best way for you to work. Figure out what it is that's your best time and work from your best time. And of course, then really and truly set a goal. If you're to do one thing for your business, the best thing you can do for your business today is to adopt that pause button. Trust me, I have had people come back to me a year later and say to me, Jenny, I heard you talk a year ago, and I've taken that little bit of advice on board and I've implemented it. And I don't get to do it every single day, but most days I do. And it's unbelievably impacted my business and me as a person. So what have you got to lose? 2 to 3 minutes a day? You think you can handle that? Absolutely. So do let me know how you get on. My website is jenniecruise.ie. And of course, I'm part of the Base Enterprise tenants like yourselves. So feel free to make contact with me. And if there's anything else I can do to help, please feel free to let me know. And I shall see you all soon.